Hi guys, welcome back to another one of my cat making videos. So I'm making a bunch of action cats. So got 3, this is the last one out of the video series so far. This one is a Zoomies chocolate point Burmese, or chocolate Burmese. So we have a nice little Zoomies pose going on. The head is sculpted out of polymer clay, as well as the feet. Body is a fake fur, which I've airbrushed these little chocolate points on. So it has a ball and socket armature inside, so you know you can pose it in different sort of ways. Tail, we've got fluffy tail, classic Zoomies. And yeah, so this one is available in my shop as well, creaturesandnat.com. Payment plans are also welcome, so just shoot me a message and I can tell you how they work. But if you want to know how I made her, then keep watching. Alright, so we're starting off by making some eyes for this Zoomies Burmese cat. So basically what I do is I use flat back cabochons. These are quite large, these ones. I can't remember the size, I think they're 12mm. And I have also printed off some cat eyes onto some photographic paper. So this is a general way of how I make some of my eyes. It's not everything that I do. I have other methods of making eyes, but this is just the one that I am choosing to do for this Zoomies cat. So I have prepped some eyes on the photo paper and I am gluing the cabochon on top of the print. So I'm using Elmer's glue for this one. I find this one works really well and it doesn't interact with the print or the ink or anything. So it's just a Elmer's glue, just a clear Elmer's glue. I haven't used any other glue because I find this one works well. So I'm going to stick these onto the print and then leave it to dry overnight so they're nice and stuck to the paper. And once they are dry, I cut them out of the paper to create the eyes basically. So now I can start sculpting. So for this head, I'm using a aluminium foil core and covering it in some Sculpey Original. So Sculpey Original is the softer polymer clay. I use it for pretty much everything. I like working with soft clays, but you can get harder ones as well. So I've roughly shaped the head into basically a skull shape, so it's going to act as the skull, and then I'm covering it in a layer of that polymer clay so I can start building up on those features. So I'm going to start off by doing the lower jaw, just adding that onto the head and start mapping out all those little details and basically building a structure. Okay, so I can start moving on to the nose now. So I'm just using Sculpey Original for this one because I did decide on doing a chocolate point Burmese cat and they have a brown nose for their brown points. So I'm just going in with that Sculpey Original. Normally I use Super Sculpey. That's like the transparent, semi-translucent beige coloured one that I like to use for noses and mouths, toe beans, all that sort of thing. But seeing as this one's going to be painted brown, I don't need to use it, so I'm just using some Sculpey Original and basically shaping it into a rough shape of a triangle and then adding the final details with my tools, like my ball tool to create the little nostrils and my needle tool to create like the little slits up the side of the nostrils, and just blending that into the head. Then we can start building out the muzzle. So again, I'm just rolled out some pieces of clay, roughly the same size, and then started to combine it into that muzzle area while I'm creating that little lip line. So this one is a Zoomies cat, so it needs a Zoomies face. So the head is going to be a little bit pulled back and the mouth is going to be a tad bit open where you can see the gum lines. Now the Burmese has a little bit more of a squashed in face, not tragically squashed in, but a little bit more of a stubby face with a stubby body. So I have to make sure I'm not making a protruding muzzle and just making it a little bit more flat. Alright, we can start moving on to adding the eyes now. So for the eyes, I like to create a little eye socket with 2 balls of clay and flattening it for the cabochons to sit on. So I've basically mapped in where I want these to sit, and then I'm going to add those pieces of clay and put those cabochons on top, sort of blending it into the eye socket. And this was like the cutest little thing when I put these eyes on. It was so cute and perfect. So I'm just looking at it from all angles to make sure the pupils are all in the same direction and it's all symmetrical. Then I can start rolling out some little wormies to create the eyelids. And again, this is going to be pushed back a little bit or pulled back a little bit because it is a zoomies face. So it's not a relaxed face, it's a zoomies face. Then I can go in with my silicone tool and just clean up the eyelids a little bit and make sure they're nice and open. Then I start building up the brow line and start making the head a proper shape, and then I can add the ears as the final little detailing piece, and then I can go in and start adding the finer details. So I've rolled out 2 bits of clay, roughly the same size, to make the ears. So the ears are quite big on Burmese cats, so just shaping them out with my fingers into like a triangle point with a round tip, and then I can place it on the head and shape them that way. Now, as this is the zoomies cat, we have to angle the ears backwards because it's a zoomies head. So I'm basically placing the ears, trying to get them symmetrically and in the right shape. I've also got reference images on my computer to make sure I've got the zoomies face down pat. And then I can start blending him into the head when I'm happy at the positioning. And just going to clean up the head a little bit to just around the eyes and the nose and the mouth. Just clean it up so it's ready to be baked. Okay, so once it's been baked, I can start painting some little areas. So around the eyes, I ended up painting it a little bit of pink and then going over it with a darker brown because it is a chocolate point Burmese and they have brown points on their face. And a little bit of pink in the ears as well, which I am going to airbrush over the top of in brown, but I want a little bit of that pink see-through. And then going in with some brown paint to paint where those points are going to be. Again, I explained in another video of my Siamese cat that I like to go over the darker areas instead of the white, because the white seems to show through quite easily when you're using darker fur. So to combat that, I like to paint the surface the same color as the fur that I'm going to use, and it really helps with the blending. And same deal with the feet. For the feet of this one, I did do a little pink toe beans, and I am covering them in a wash of brown just to get that little bit of brown colouring onto the paw pads. Alrighty, time to start the armature pieces. So I'm using a 1/8 size ball and socket armature for the skeleton of this doll. That is my smallest size, so I'm just going to pop off all the pieces that I need and attach it to the polymer clay pieces. Then I'm going to go in with my pliers and start creating that skeleton out of the ball and socket armature. So I'm just basically popping on some plus socket joints for the hip joint and also the shoulder joints. Then I can attach the legs. And once we are ready with the armature, I can start needle felting process. So for the needle felting, I like to cover the armature in pipe cleaners, and that basically acts as a catch for the polyfill that I use to needle felt the body. It's a lot easier for it to go around the armature when the pipe cleaners are on. It doesn't provide any structural stability or anything. It's just purely for the felting process. Then we can start adding the polyfill. So I like to do a layer of the polyfill around the entire armature to begin with, and then I can build on the structure of the doll. So going over it with my single needle and just needle felting the polyfill together to create that first initial layer. And building on the legs as well. The legs don't need too much polyfill on it because the first initial layer is usually enough, and I just sort of build up around the shoulder line. And then I can start working on the belly area, just building that up a little bit before I can add the faux fur, which is next. Okay, so I'm going to be using this faux fur for the chocolate point Burmese, and this is a really nice, perfect fur for a chocolate point. I just somehow managed to find it. So I'm going to be focusing on the torso piece to begin with. So I basically cut out a vest and pin it together, sew it up with a ladder stitch, and then I can start working on the extremities. So I'm going to get my doll and place it onto the back of the faux fur and then cut out some, just like a rough shape of the torso piece. And just going to sew up with that ladder stitch and take out the pins, obviously, before I can start adding the legs. So I'm using a good quality thread for this one. It's the Gutermann thread because you need a little bit of tension with the ladder stitch to make sure the seam line is closed. For the legs, it's pretty much the same deal as the torso, just wrapping it around the structure that we needle felted, cutting the excess off and sewing it up using a ladder stitch and then attaching it to the torso. And again, not going to bore you with the sewing details because it takes so long. It takes hours to sew. So let's skip to the good part. Alright, so I'm going to go in once it's all sewn up and we've skipped that boring part. I'm going to go in and glue all the fabric pieces to the polymer clay pieces. So I use a tacky fabric glue to glue this together, just usually around the neck and the feet, obviously, where anything that has a polymer clay piece to fabric. And then I'm going to leave this overnight to dry and make sure it's nice and adhered before moving on to the next step. The next step is applying some faux fur to the face. So you have a little look here, I'll give it a bit of a trim and then we can start adding the final details. So that's basically just going around the painted pieces that I did before. After the furring process, sometimes it sort of mutes it out a little bit, so we need to add those details back in. So I'm just going around the eyes, the nose and the mouth with some of that brown paint, and then I can go move on to the airbrushing. So with the airbrushing, I am going in with my Artdoll airbrush and just airbrushing in those brown points. So it's the face, the ears, the legs and the tail. So they're pretty heavy points. So we're going to go in with a nice dark brown and make sure those details are added in. It's a little bit of a time consuming process. This is a detailing brush. I have airbrush. I have bought a different airbrush that has a wider spray. So it should be able to get the airbrushing like this done really quickly. Once the airbrushing's done though, I can start adding like the little finer details, so just like the finishing pieces. So the whiskers, any nails that I need to, I just added whiskers to this one. I have a whiskers tutorial in my shop if you want to know how I do them at creaturesofnat.com. This little one is available and looking for a home as well, so check out them on my shop at creaturesofnat.com. I do offer payment plans. I'm super flexible with it, so just shoot me a message and I can let you know how they work. But anyway, you can find me on Facebook, TikTok, and what else? Instagram. I do lives quite often on my TikTok and YouTube, so check it out then, where I make my dolls. But don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Leave a comment on my videos. It helps my channel grow, and I hope you enjoyed watching me make this zoomies catch. Catch. Catch you in the next one, guys. Bye.